When I was asked to write a paper for this seminar, and I suggested a title in a hurry rather because Mishraji was reminding me that send the summary and title, send the summary and title. So I sent the summary and the title to. When I started writing the paper, the first sentence which occurred to me that I will begin like this, that Dharampal is one of the great philosophers of modern age. But then I thought that uh, it cannot be the beginning of a paper. So it was difficult to write the first sentence for my paper. And if you can't write the first sentence, you can't write the other sentences. So why this problem came to me? Because whatever Dharampal I have read, I felt that if you say that Dharampal is a great philosopher of our times, perhaps Dharampalji himself would not like it to be introduced that way. And I have reasons to say that. I don't know whether I'm right or not, but Dharampalji would have protested. Don't call me a philosopher. So this problem came to me. How to introduce Dharampal to those who have not read Dharmapal. That is the problem. You are all enlightened about Dharmapal. My problem is different. So I want him to be introduced to our students in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh and in the colleges and even in the schools, at least to the higher secondary boys, some elementary reading of Dharampal. But how to say what Dharampal is for us? So we should not say that he is a modern philosopher. Then how to define the Rampal? That is one problem for me. So then, uh, why I felt like this? That uh, we don't have an exact word for philosophy or philosopher in our tradition. The way these word connote in Western tradition. Normally, we use the word darshana for philosophy and darshanik for a philosopher. But darshan and the root connected to it, they have entirely a different meaning. So, so what exactly was the word in our tradition which was used for philosophy? We have several words, and that is another thing about our tradition. That there's not a single word. There are numerous words like Paravidya, Brahmavidya, Brahmagyan, Brahmajigyasa, you can say. So they have only one word philosophy. I would give a list of 10 words, 10 such words. And each word has its own distinct meaning. It conveys something. So the problem is that if I do not call Dharmapal a philosopher, what should I call him? I won't call him a darshanik because darshanik is normally and frequently used in modern discourses through Indian languages to denote a philosopher. And but to my knowledge, the word darshanik is nowhere used in the literature which I am uh, familiar with. Till 18th century, there are several such words which are not used in Sanskrit literature, which I know. The word Hindu is nowhere used. The word Darshanika is not there. So, uh, the term Darshana is very much there in our Shastras, but Darshana literally means seeing. And seeing not by our physical eye, but seeing beyond what the common people with their physical eyes do not see. So darshana indicates the extraordinary capacity of a person to see beyond time, and is her capacity to see the essence of things. So vichitra bhava dharmansha tattva prakhyacha darshanam. This is the definition of darshana, which one of the great acharyas, Bhattatota, who was the guru of Abhinav Gupta, he gives. So now, Bhattatota is suggesting that every phenomenon consists of twofold bhavas, uh, and two types of natures. One is avichitra bhava, and other is vichitra bhava. The term vichitra may not mean, yesterday this problem came to me, and it was very intriguing when Godavarishji was telling that Shankaracharya is also talking of Vaichitriya, and you say that it is Vaichitriya. Actually, I couldn't locate an exact translation of this Vaichitriya in English. So I was saying inexplicable nature. Vaichitya cannot be said inexplicable nature. It is something different, but I was not finding an exact word. But here, when we look at this definition of darshana, so they said that there is a vichitra bhav and an avichitra bhav in everything we see. And the darshanika, or a person who has darshana, would reveal the vichitra bhav would be revealed to him. So that way, Dharampalji was seeing the vichitra bhav of 19th or early of pre-colonial India, or 18th century, and that way we can define him. So who can a person who has the capacity of darshan is called a rishi. That is another standard work, standard definition. Rishishtakira darshanat. A person who can have darshana is a rishi. And the root construction of rishi, the root ri means to see. And in English also seer comes from see. So we can perhaps say that Dharmapal is a modern rishi. That way, perhaps we can communicate to the generation to whom I have been addressing. I have a different sort of audiences where I go. I go to Sanskrit universities and colleges where. So how to describe Dharmapal to this generation? This is a different audience here. You are coming from different countries, and English is the language here. I go to the places in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, and they ask me to speak in Hindi. Please, sir, Hindi में बोलिएगा. Even then, many things go in English. So there, only thing I want to say is that Dharmapal should be brought to Indian vernaculars. In Hindi, some of his works are, of course, available. I think in Gujarati also some of his works or books are available. But to a larger audience, the younger generation, and not the enlightened younger people like you who are so enthusiastic and doing such a wonderful work here. It is simply uh, amazing the way you have organized this seminar. So, what are the possibilities of expanding Dharmapal's message and his wonderful work that he has done? So, I would come, I would tell you how I came to know Dharmapal. I've been knowing Dharampal, not personally, but through his works for the past 36 years. It was in 1988 that one of my friends and a senior critic, his age was very senior to me, a brilliant critic of Hindi literature and a poet, Vijay Bahadur Singh, he gave me a book, अंग्रेजों से पहले का भारत, which he had edited in 1988. This book was published by himself. Okay, I read that book. And after reading that book, I felt that I have changed within. And the world changed for me after going through that book. And I felt I read Hindu Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi. And I felt that like Hindu Swaraj, it is the book which should be given to the college boys, or to the even to the school children in a simplified form. And later on, I became somewhat interested in Dharampal, so I acquired two more of his works. It is Bharat Ka Swadharma. It was published from Bikaner in 1994. I think it is a collection of lectures delivered on 19th and 20th September 1987 at Bikaner by Dharampalji at Chaganlal Mehta Memorial Lectures. They were delivered in Hindi. These lectures were delivered in Hindi. I think Dharampal was born in a Hindi speaking area, and Hindi was his language. So he would have liked that his works go in a language which was his language, and his works are translated into many more Indian languages. Recently, Vijay Bahadur Singh has brought second edition of this work, अंग्रेजों से पहले का भारत. Actually, it is the translation of science and technology in 18th century India, and how he made a resolve to publish this book and edit this book. So he gives a story of his meeting Dharampal. What happened that these articles in Hindi were serialized in a daily Jansatta, and Jansatta used to be a very different kind of newspaper in Hindi, and it was being edited by a very very brilliant journalist in our area, and the Hindi translations of science and technology in 18th century were brought out serially in Jansatta, and Vijay Bahadur Singh was reading those translations. And once he was visiting uh, Gandhi Peace Foundation to meet Anupam Mishra. Anupam Mishra is also a wonderful person of our age. I have been meeting Anupam Mishra, and they were discussing something, and suddenly the door of the washroom opened, and some elderly person came out after taking bath from that. And Anupam Mishra said that, let me introduce you to Dharampal ji. आपको धर्मपाल जी से मिला देता हूँ. So Vijay Bahadur Singh ji was surprised, and he was perhaps dreaming that someday I would meet Dharampal ji. And they started talking, and during the discussion, Vijay Bahadur ji asked Dharampal ji whether I can collect all the articles of the translation of your book, which were serialized in Jansatta, and edit them and published in the form of a book. I am saying this that how Dharampal ji reacted. He was not at all elated, or he was not very enthusiastic at the proposal. Nonchalantly, he said, "कौन पढ़ता है? कौन पढ़ेगा?" So this is in the preface Vijay Bahadur Singh had written. Still, Vijay Bahadur Singh said that no, I want to bring your message to a larger section of the society in my area. Dharampalji said, okay, you edit, collect, and publish whatever you want to do. He collected and gave it to press, and then asked Dharampalji, please write an introduction to this work. Dharampalji said, no, no, I won't write any introduction. And he said, whatever you want, you write. So there is a preface in Hindi that goes with that book, अंग्रेजों से पहले का भारत, and name of Dharampal ji is there. But Vijay Bahadur Singh said that I made that preface from some articles and from some other books in English from by Dharampal, and Dharampal ji permitted me. And there is a sentence there. Perhaps Dharampal ji might have agreed with him. He says there is a sentence on the name of Dharampal there. मुझे मुझे इस बात की प्रसन्नता है कि हिंदी में यह पुस्तक छप रही है और यह उपलब्ध होगी. So perhaps Dharmapal ji wanted that his writings and his message should reach, the outreach should be increased, and they should reach to a larger section of the audience. Now, one more point which I want to make, and I am worrying about my flight also, and you can see my predicament. So, after reading these books by Dharmapal, भारत का स्वधर्म भारतीय चित्त मानस और हाल और अंग्रेजों से पहले का भारत in Hindi, wherever I go to give lectures on Indian tradition and something related to Indian history, I asked one question. That is Dharampalji's question, of course, but I do not refer to Dharampal by name. I ask this question: how can we understand the distant past without understanding the recent past? How can we understand the structure of a tree if only we are talking about its roots and we are not discussing the trunk and the branches and the flowers, etc.? And how can we understand the seers of Vedic age if we do not understand our great grandfather or grandfather, etc.? What do we know about, what do I know about my great grandfather? What do I know about my grandfather? I had seen him. I knew some things about him. But what do I know about the period in which he was living 100 years before? And what do I know about the period in which my great grandfather was living? Now, what happens that when I raise this question in such terms, the audiences which I have, they don't respond. They are very humble. Otherwise, if in a different audience, they will be saying, "What rubbish you are talking." I know my grandfather. I know his name. I know his background. So why do you ask me like this? When I speak about the audiences in Sanskrit colleges, Sanskrit universities, they 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 don't respond because they would be saying in reply to my question that we know to what gotra, to what shakha our forefathers, my grandfather belonged. So we know about him. That is sufficient. So they don't understand what it means to be cut off from the recent past, which Dharmapal ji was saying. So I felt this, that I am cut off from my recent past. So how can I cultivate the message of Dharampal that I am thinking? So I should know in my own way. I should know more about Dharampal. I should uh, know more about the recent past, and I have my own sources. So it was perhaps the inspiration of Dharampalji that I started working on the Pandits during 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. And I can name many more such Pandits who were doing uh, wonderful work during this period. So we can extend the frontiers of the work which Dharampal has done. Of course, it's a wonderful work, but there are areas which remain unexplored, and we can still uh, go to those areas. For examples, I know some Sanskrit pathshalas which were not closed. During the British colonization period, many good Sanskrit traditional institutions were closed. But there are some very great institutions of Sanskrit learning, and they continued. So there is a Pragya Pathshala at Y. There is a very small place, Y, into Maharashtra, and there is a Pragya Pathshala there. And that Pragya Pathshala produced great scholars, great pundits. One of them is Lakshman Shastri Joshi. Lakshman Shastri Joshi is one of the greatest scholars of Indian history, Indian tradition, and Indian literature also. He is a great critic also. He is a name in modern Indian literature also. So Kevalananda Saraswati, who was a sannyasi and a great pandit also, he was running that Pragya Pathshala. And there is a chain of Pragya Pathshalas in Maharashtra that continues. And they are producing brilliant boys. So how these Pragya Pathshalas function? Very little is known about them. They are in the villages. There is a chain of Pragya Pathshalas. There is one Devdatta Patil. He is one of the giants of Nyaya philosophy, one of the greatest scholars of Nyaya philosophy, but he lives in a small village and he teaches students there. He has a small pathshala there. He is offered big positions. He doesn't go there. So this was the tradition. There are pandits who are offered big position, but they do not leave their pathshala and they are content with that teaching there. So those pathshalas, some of them are still continuing without any financial support from the establishment because they have their self-subsisting system. That system continues. The colonizers couldn't demolish that system. So we have to see how we can cultivate that self-subsisting system which was there in the chain of pathshalas, and it still thrives, and there are possibilities of carrying it forward. So this was one suggestion which I wanted to make, and we can further explore the significant research work done by Dharmapal, and it's a revolutionary work. And the message of Dharmapal, as I understand it, that to search within ourselves and to understand our own psyche or Indian psyche, Bharatiya Manas, as he calls it, and then to go back again. So going back again, not only to 18th and 19th century for me, why not extend this area of the recent past? So that is my suggestion. And if you see the centuries earlier to it, if you see 17th century, 16th century, 15th century, and 14th century, what is happening there? And lot of distorted picture is being presented of these centuries, coming from the 12th century up to 17th century. We hardly know the real. We are hardly acquainted with the realities of these centuries. All the histories are distorted. I go through the original sources. There are history books in Sanskrit about the Mughal emperors, historical poems written by Pandits about the Mughal emperors, Akbar, Shah Jahan, even Jahangir. And there is a whole historical literature in Sanskrit. They are telling some history. Nobody knows that these histories are written in Sanskrit. And even there is a book on Chote Sayyad, Bade Sayyad in Sanskrit written by Pandit Lakshmidhar in 1000 Anushtuk verses. He was an eyewitness to what was happening after Aurangzeb during the late 17th and 18th century. So what do we know actually? What do we know about the education system during these centuries? So my suggestion is only that to reclaim the Swaraj, which perhaps is our problem, to regain the Swaraj, we should extend the frontiers of our knowledge about this past, not only the distant past, but the recent past also, and uh, to understand our own mind, the Indian mind. There is a problem perhaps with us, which Dharmpalji also is pointing out, that we have a tendency to close ourselves. We were wounded. We were a wounded civilization, as Noipal calls. Noipal says, and the challenge, the enormous big challenge, which was posed before us uh, when the Turks and Mughals arrived as invaders and they attacked us and they were looting our wealth. That was a challenge. A bigger challenge was that when they settled and they started ruling our land. So Dharampalji is right in saying that we couldn't properly meet that challenge. We were creating the Vijayanagar Empire. And as great a philosopher as Swami Vidyaranya was there. It is his critique, you see. So, as a Sanskrit scholar, I have to examine what he says about Vidyaranya Swami. Vidyaranya Swami, you will be agreeing that it is said that he is even a greater philosopher than Bhagavad Pad Shankara. And he was the minister of the King Harihar. And he had the vision how to create an empire parallel to the Mughal Raj in Delhi. But Dharampalji is saying that we failed there somewhere. In a way, we failed there because we didn't have the proper vision to create uh, an empire which would have reached the people. So we thought that we will be ruling. We were rulers. And that relationship of the ruler and the rule continues there, whether it is Vijayanagar Empire or it is Delhi Empire or even Shivaji. He was equally great guru like Samat Swami Ramdas. So these are the remarks by Dharampal on Swami Vidyaranya, one of the greatest philosophers, and Samat Swami Ramdas, who is one of the great saints in the tradition, and they are worth considering that what sort of vision they are having and how they couldn't envision a kinetic relationship between the ruler and the ruled. That is the problem. So if you view the all these centuries and what is happening throughout the millennium, what is happening, and prior to that millennium, what situation is there. So we have to understand our own traditions that way and critique our own traditions, not always saying that we are great people and we are Jagat Gurus and everywhere we created this and we created this. So Dharmpalji is perhaps giving the message of developing a critical attitude to understand ourselves and our own tradition that way. And well, I had written a paper and many points are there. No, there is no time. So what I wanted to say that during 19th century, it's a great period, and several great thinkers are there, and a call is being given to go back to Vedas by Swami Dayanand and Arvindo, and the message to search our Swaraj through Vedas is being given. But Dharmpalji arrives on this scenario a little later, and he changes the whole scenario. And of course, he is guided by Gandhi. So there is a kinetic relationship between Gandhi and Dharampal. And if Gandhi is a Sutrakara, Dharampal is a great Bhashyakara. Gandhi gave this sutra, which he cites, a passage from Gandhi, which he cites in Beautiful Tree, and that became the mantra for Dharampala and Dharampalji, and he expanded this whole research work on the basis of that. So decolonizing ourselves and decolonizing our mind and study of the rural scenario and the life of farmers as well as the systems of governance, etc., which Dharmapalji did and showed us the kind of self-subsisting system that we had there and the Swaraj which we had there, which has been taken away from us. So reclaiming of that Swaraj is a problem. So of course others are also talking about the Swaraj of ideas, but Dharampalji had shown us another way, which is a proper way to reclaim that Swaraj. I think I should stop here.